speech/story, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" But when the millionaire looked into her eyes, it was a rainy evening, the kind that drips slowly from the rooftops and makes your soul feel heavy. People rushed through the city streets under umbrellas and overcoats, shielding themselves not just from the rain, but from the world. Inside a warm, luxurious restaurant, laughter and the clinking of cutlery danced in the air. Silk napkins, glistening chandeliers, and plates full of untouched food sat before people who barely noticed them. They were too consumed in conversations about markets, stocks, and plans for the weekend. Outside the glass door, just beyond the golden glow, stood a girl. She was no older than 10, thin, barefoot. Her dress was once white, now smudged with the color of hardship. Her tiny hands clutched her stomach as it growled louder than her courage. She didn't beg, she didn't shout, she stood quietly, waiting for someone to notice her. Finally, as one man stepped out, wrapping his scarf around his neck, she walked toward him, not with desperation, but with a kind of dignity rare for someone so young, so hungry. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice soft but clear. "May I have your leftovers?" He paused, surprised not just by her request, but by her presence. He had walked these streets for years and had never seen her before. "Leftovers?" he echoed, puzzled. She nodded, pointing to the half-eaten sandwich in his hand. "Just that. I'm not asking for money, sir, just something to eat." As he looked down to hand her the food, his eyes met hers. And in that one moment, time didn't just pause, it shattered. There was something in her eyes that words could never hold. They weren't begging. They weren't ashamed. They were ancient, as if 1,000 storms had passed through them. But somehow they still held stars. That's when everything changed, because what he saw wasn't a hungry child. He saw a mirror, reflecting everything he had forgotten. He remembered his mother, who used to go without dinner so he could eat. He remembered the days when his father lost his job, and their home was filled with silence and struggle. He remembered hunger not of the body, but of the soul. And suddenly, the sandwich in his hand felt too small. Insignificant, not enough. He knelt down, not just to give her food, but to honor her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Anaya," she whispered. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" She shook her head slowly. He didn't know what moved him next, whether it was guilt, grief, or grace, but he knew he couldn't walk away. That night, he didn't just feed a child. He sat with her. He listened to her. He learned her story. She had lost her mother 2 years ago. Her father was gone. She slept under a broken bridge with 3 younger siblings. Every day, she scoured the streets not just for food, but for hope. He took action. Not from pity, but from purpose. He arranged shelter, education, safety. He invested not just money, but time. Years later, Anaya would grow to become one of the most powerful voices for street children across the world. Her foundation would save thousands, but she would always tell people this. "My life didn't change because someone gave me food. It changed because someone looked into my eyes and saw me." Educational takeaway: this story is not about rescuing others with our wealth. It's about reconnecting with our humanity. Every day, we pass people with silent battles. Sometimes, all it takes to change a life is to see it, acknowledge it, and respond with the heart. Teach your children, your students, your friends, kindness is never wasted. Compassion is the truest form of power, and the eyes you avoid might hold the wisdom your soul is still searching for. Be the person who sees. Because the world doesn't change when we give leftovers. It changes when we give ourselves. Sometimes, the loudest cries are the ones we never hear. The hunger that truly cripples a person isn't always the growl in their stomach, but the ache of being unseen, ignored, and forgotten. When someone quietly asks for your leftovers, they're not simply requesting food. They're revealing their struggle, their humility, and their silent suffering in the most respectful way they know. It is a deeply human moment, easily missed in the noise of our busy lives. The hidden hunger behind humility is a concept few of us are taught to recognize. Society often teaches us to equate confidence with competence and silence with weakness, but that's a dangerous miscalculation. There are people, millions in fact, who go to sleep hungry every night and wake up to a world that looks past them as though they don't exist. These individuals carry their pain quietly, They don't scream for attention. They don't demand your help. Instead, they walk gently through the crowd, hoping that someone, anyone, might notice the quiet desperation in their eyes. We've all walked past them before, the woman with tired feet selling fruit at the corner, the elderly man quietly sweeping in front of a small shack, the child who sits on the steps with a cloth bag clutched to their chest. They ask for little, but that little means everything to them, and what they ask for is not just food, it's dignity, it's acknowledgement, it's hope. When someone asks, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" it might sound like a simple request, but it is, in reality, a moment of great vulnerability. They are opening themselves up to rejection, to shame, to humiliation. It takes immense courage to ask, even for something you desperately need, because you know that many will turn away. And when they do, you learn a dangerous lesson, that your suffering is invisible and worse, that it doesn't matter. We need to start looking at humility differently. It is not weakness. It is strength born of suffering. It is resilience cloaked in silence. It is the courage to keep trying, even when the world tells you you're not worth seeing. And the people who walk through this world with humility, asking only for what they need, often carry the greatest wisdom. They know the value of a meal, the meaning of shelter, the weight of kindness, things that the rest of us, surrounded by abundance, too often forget. The real danger is not that people are hungry. It is that they are made to feel invisible in their hunger. That their soft, spoken requests are drowned out by the noise of our indifference. That their humility becomes a cloak that makes them disappear in a world obsessed with appearance, volume, and self-importance. As human beings, our true education is not complete until we learn to recognize the quiet pain in others, until we learn to slow down enough to notice that someone, somewhere, is trying to hold their dignity together with frayed hope and trembling hands. It is not charity that makes us human. It is awareness. It is the decision to see. When we respond to a humble request, we are not just giving food. We are giving recognition. We are saying, "I see you. I hear you. You matter." And for someone who has been invisible for too long, that may be the greatest nourishment of all. So the next time someone approaches you quietly, asking for something as small as your leftovers, remember, that request may be carrying the weight of 100 silent nights. And your response, whether it's indifference or kindness, will not just affect their day, but possibly reshape their belief in humanity. Let us be people who notice. Let us be people who care, because the world doesn't only need more food, it needs more understanding. And often, what begins with a humble ask ends with a powerful transformation, for them and for us. A single glance has the power to reach where words cannot. The eyes, silent, expressive, and eternal, are windows into the deepest chambers of the human soul. When the millionaire looked into the young girl's eyes, something changed, not just in his understanding of her, but in his understanding of himself. It wasn't her voice that moved him, nor the simplicity of her request. It was the profound stillness and sorrow he saw reflected in her gaze. In that brief but powerful moment, two worlds collided, one of comfort and privilege, the other of struggle and survival. Too often, we live our lives at a distance, brushing past people without really seeing them. We may glance at faces but fail to see souls. We hear stories but don't listen with our hearts. Eye contact, in its purest form, is becoming rare in a world distracted by screens, speed, and self-absorption. But when we pause and look, truly look, into someone's eyes, we tap into a space beyond labels, status, and assumptions. We connect to their humanity. The girl in this story did not speak much. She didn't plead or dramatize her need. She simply asked, and when questioned, she met his eyes. In them was not just hunger, but history. There was a resilience shaped by hardship, a gentleness born from pain, a spark of dignity that refused to die, even in the midst of deprivation. And that, more than anything else, touched the man who had everything, but perhaps had forgotten what it meant to truly see. We underestimate the language of the eyes. They can carry sorrow heavier than words, gratitude deeper than speech, and strength greater than appearances. They reveal stories, silent stories, of broken dreams, long walks, lost homes, forgotten promises. They reflect what the heart has carried when the lips were too tired to speak. When someone looks you in the eyes, and you take the time to look back, a door opens. Not a door of pity, but of profound human recognition. There's a reason why some of the most transformative moments in our lives begin with eye contact. It's how we first bond with a newborn, how we know a loved one is hurting, how we offer unspoken comfort in silence. It's how a teacher sees the potential in a quiet student, how a stranger senses your pain, how we find love in the most unexpected places. Our eyes speak truths our words can't form. In education, leadership, and compassion, this principle applies powerfully. As teachers, we must look into the eyes of our students, not just to monitor them, but to understand them. Behind a failing grade might be a child dealing with chaos at home. Behind a quiet face might be untold creativity waiting to be invited forward. As leaders, we must look into the eyes of our teams. Are they burnt out, afraid, unseen? The eyes will tell you what their words might not. In everyday life, choosing to see someone can be revolutionary. That child by the roadside, look into their eyes. That janitor cleaning your building, look into their eyes. That elderly neighbor who sits alone on their porch, look into their eyes. In those brief moments, we offer connection, respect, and acknowledgement. We remind them, and ourselves, that we are still human in a world that forgets what that means. When the millionaire looked into that girl's eyes, he did not just see her hunger. He saw his own blindness. He saw the gap between wealth and wisdom, between possession and presence. In that girl's eyes, he found something he had lost: clarity, compassion, and purpose. It wasn't a transaction, it was a transformation. This isn't just about one story, it's a call to all of us. Slow down, look around, see people, not just their clothes or titles, but their eyes. Let those moments humble you, wake you, and guide you back to what truly matters. Because when we choose to see others fully, we begin to see ourselves more clearly, too. In a world that often measures success by bank balances, properties, and luxury, it is easy to forget the deeper, truer currency of life, our humanity. While money can buy houses, cars, and even influence, it cannot buy empathy, integrity, or a soul that beats for others. True wealth is not found in numbers or possessions, but in how we treat people, especially those who have nothing to offer us in return. The moment we begin to define ourselves not by what we have, but by how we love, we move from being rich to being valuable. The millionaire in the story lived a life many would envy. His meals were never cold, his bed never hard, and his future always secure. Yet it was a single interaction with a girl asking for leftovers that changed him, not because he gave her something, but because she gave him a chance to reconnect with his own compassion. When he looked into her eyes, he didn't see poverty, he saw purpose. He didn't feel guilt, he felt responsibility. That's the shift that defines true wealth. It's not about feeling sorry for those less fortunate, it's about recognizing your privilege and using it to lift others. There's a saying, you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat someone who can do nothing for them. That's the ultimate test of character. Anyone can be kind to someone powerful. Anyone can smile at someone wealthy. But how we treat the silent, the poor, the ignored, that reveals the kind of person we truly are. The girl asked for leftovers, not money. She wasn't trying to manipulate or take advantage. She just needed food. And in her soft request, she presented an opportunity, not just to help, but to be human. Society often teaches us to admire success and overlook struggle. We put celebrities on pedestals and walk past the homeless as if they are invisible. But what if we began to flip that? What if we started admiring those who endure, who give even when they have little, who carry burdens we'll never fully understand? These are the truly rich, those whose hearts are full, even if their pockets are empty. The millionaire's decision to stop, listen, and act wasn't about charity. It was about awakening. He had everything, but in that moment, he realized he had missed something essential. He had built an empire, but had he built a life of meaning? He had gained status, but had he gained self-respect? Sometimes it takes the quiet honesty of a child, the innocence in their request, to remind us of what matters most. We must remember, we are all equal in our need for love, dignity, and respect. Money may separate our lifestyles, but not our humanity. The real tragedy isn't that people are poor, it's that they are treated as less than human because of it. When we start valuing people not for what they have, but for who they are, we begin to rebuild the broken soul of this world. Education should not just teach us how to earn, but how to care. It should teach us that giving is not weakness, that kindness is not optional, and that compassion is not charity, it's justice. We must teach our children and ourselves that our greatest worth lies in how we uplift others. The world doesn't need more millionaires. It needs more people willing to see, feel, and act. Let your wealth be measured by the lives you touch, not the things you own. Because in the end, we won't be remembered for our bank statements. We'll be remembered for our humanity. Be the person who gives when no one is looking, who helps without being asked, who sees value in every life. That is the true definition of being rich. Every person you pass on the street, sit beside on a bus, or brush shoulders within a crowded room carries an entire universe within them, a story full of memories, dreams, pain, triumph, and unanswered prayers. But in our fast, moving world, we often forget this truth. We see faces, not stories. We categorize people by their appearance, their clothes, their silence. We assume too quickly, and as a result, we miss the opportunity to truly know the people around us. Every stranger has a story worth hearing, and often, the ones with the most powerful stories are the quietest voices in the room. The little girl who asked for leftovers was one of those people. On the outside, she looked like another hungry child. Her dress was worn, her hands were dirty, her voice was soft. Many would have walked past her without a second thought, perhaps assuming she was part of a scam, or just another face among thousands. But behind her tired expression was a history that could break hearts and build wisdom. She wasn't just asking for food. She was carrying the weight of 1,000 quiet sacrifices, sleepless nights, and the responsibility of caring for her younger siblings. She was a warrior in disguise, a child who had seen more pain than most adults ever would. We often assume that if someone doesn't speak up, their life must be simple or insignificant. But silence can come from strength. It can come from survival. It can come from a lifetime of being ignored and learning that the world rarely listens. Many people don't share their stories because they're afraid they won't be believed, or worse, that no one will care. But the truth is, everyone's story matters. Everyone has faced invisible battles. Everyone has moments they wish someone had asked about. When we take the time to listen, to really listen, we unlock something sacred. It could be the man who sweeps the streets every morning, who once dreamed of being a teacher, but had to quit school to support his family. It could be the woman who works 3 jobs, who once sang on stages, but now sings lullabies to her children as she puts them to bed in a single rented room. It could be the teenager who always seems angry, who is actually grieving someone they lost far too soon. Every stranger holds wisdom we haven't yet learned, pain we haven't yet understood, strength we haven't yet recognized, but we cannot learn from them if we do not make space for their voice. Listening is not just about hearing words, it's about seeing people. It's about laying aside our judgments, our rush, and our distractions long enough to witness the humanity in front of us. There's also something profoundly healing about being heard. Sometimes all it takes is one person who truly listens to remind someone that they matter, that they are more than what the world sees. When we offer someone the chance to share their story, we give them dignity, and we also receive something in return: perspective, compassion, understanding. Our own hearts grow wider when we let others enter them. The girl in the story might have remained a nameless figure in the background of a crowded city, but someone took the time to hear her story, to look into her eyes, to ask her name, to learn where she slept at night and who she protected. And that moment, one of presence and listening, became the turning point not only in her life but in his. He was changed not by giving but by listening, not by helping but by seeing. This is what we must carry with us. That behind every quiet face is a world waiting to be explored. That the person sitting next to you on a bench, walking behind you on a road, or standing in line at a store might carry a story that could change your life, if only you took the time to ask. Let us be people who look deeper, who listen longer, who believe in the power of stories to connect, heal, and transform. Because when we begin to hear the unheard, we don't just change the world, we also rediscover our own humanity. There are moments in life when everything we thought mattered, titles, wealth, appearances, suddenly fades into the background. And in their place, something raw and real emerges, the undeniable power of compassion, not charity, not sympathy, but compassion, the ability to feel another's pain as your own and to act not out of obligation, but out of shared humanity. One of the greatest lessons life can teach us is that kindness does not flow from abundance. It flows from awareness, and sometimes a child asking for leftovers can become the unexpected teacher who awakens that awareness within us. The girl did not come to teach. She came hungry. She did not wear robes of wisdom or speak in metaphors. She simply asked, but in her asking, she gave a lesson far more valuable than any lecture or book could provide. Her presence revealed something to the man she stood before, something he didn't even realize he had lost, his connection to the suffering of others, and through her he remembered what it means to be human. Often we believe that only the learned can teach, that only those with degrees, accolades, and grand speeches carry wisdom. But the truth is, some of life's greatest teachers are those who never had the luxury to sit in a classroom. The girl, with her quiet courage and dignity, taught a lesson far more profound than anything money could buy. She taught the value of seeing beyond oneself, of feeling another's emptiness, not just noticing it, of responding not just with a gesture, but with genuine presence. In the stillness of her eyes, the millionaire saw himself not as a giver, but as a learner. He realized that her resilience, her ability to ask without begging, to hope without demanding, to carry grace even in hardship, was a strength greater than any he had ever known. She reminded him of something he had perhaps forgotten in his pursuit of wealth, that true strength often wears the face of humility, and that those who have suffered deeply often possess wisdom that cannot be taught, only lived. When we open our hearts to learning from the unexpected, we change. We become more than successful. We become significant. It is not enough to earn. We must learn. And sometimes the universe places people in our path who challenge us not with words, but with their presence. People who hold up a mirror to our soul and ask, without saying a word, "Are you truly alive?" Not just breathing, but feeling, caring, connecting. Education is not confined to institutions. It is woven into every interaction, every chance encounter, every moment we choose to listen instead of judge. That girl's story was a chapter in a book the man had never read, but when he did, it opened his eyes. She taught him that giving isn't about power, it's about honor, and receiving isn't weakness, it's trust. She gave him the honor of restoring her hope, and he received the gift of becoming human again. We often underestimate the influence we have on one another. A simple act of humility, a quiet request, a single gaze can dismantle walls we've built inside ourselves. The girl's lesson didn't end when she was given food. It began there, because the food she received filled her stomach, but the moment filled his soul. This is what compassion does. It transforms. It reorients our priorities. It humbles the proud and elevates the humble. It takes a man defined by his wealth and redefines him by his heart, and in doing so, it teaches us that the smallest among us can carry the greatest truths. Let us not walk through life assuming we are the only ones with wisdom to give. Let us be open to learning from the quiet, the overlooked, the weary. Because sometimes the person we thought we were helping is the very person saving us from our blindness, our pride, and our distance from what truly matters. There is a kind of silence in the world that isn't peaceful, it's hollow. It echoes in empty homes, follows the footsteps of the forgotten, and wraps itself around the lives of those society has chosen not to see. We live in a time where connection is just a click away, and yet so many people feel more alone than ever. The forgotten faces, the ones we pass on sidewalks, ignore at red lights, or overlook in crowded places, are not nameless. They are not without stories. They are simply invisible to a world that no longer stops to care. But when we choose to see them, really see them, everything begins to change. Not just for them, but for us. The girl in the story could have been anyone, a child lost in the blur of the city, a statistic in the files of poverty, a silhouette in the shadows, but she became something more the moment someone stopped and looked. Her story didn't need to be spoken in paragraphs to matter. Her eyes, her hunger, and her courage to ask told it all. What moved the man was not just the state of her clothes or the emptiness of her hands. It was the profound realization that he had been blind to so many like her. And once you see, you can never unsee. To see the forgotten is to interrupt your own comfort. It requires intention. It asks you to pause your busy day, your to-do list, your climb up the ladder of success. It asks you to look down, not to degrade, but to uplift. To reach out a hand, not from a place of superiority, but of solidarity. Because there is no true success in life unless it includes lifting others. We were not born only to rise. We were born to rise together. One of the greatest failures of modern society is how we've normalized indifference. We're taught to shield ourselves from discomfort. We scroll past suffering, swipe away sadness, and mute the noise of need. But behind every forgotten face is a heartbeat that longs to be acknowledged. A name, a memory, a dream. The people we ignore are not empty. They are full of unrealized potential, silenced songs, and untold stories. And we will never become whole as a society until we make space for all of them. Compassion starts with awareness, the decision to notice, the courage to care. It doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as a smile, a warm meal, a listening ear, or the dignity of a returned gaze. When we meet the forgotten with kindness, we remind them, and ourselves, that they still belong, that they are not invisible, that their lives have meaning even if the world has failed to show it. There is no act of kindness too small. A piece of bread shared in sincerity can mean more than a feast given out of guilt. A moment of eye contact can rebuild what years of rejection have broken. That is the power of presence, and that is what happened when the man truly saw the girl, not just with his eyes but with his heart. The forgotten do not need pity, they need presence. They do not need saviors, they need solidarity. And once we understand that, we begin to reshape the very foundation of what it means to live a good life. True greatness is not measured by what you accumulate, but by who you choose to lift up along the way. The real legacy we leave is not in the monuments we build, but in the lives we touch. If we all chose to see just one forgotten person each day, not as a burden, but as a brother or sister, the world would begin to heal. The divide between rich and poor, seen and unseen, heard and unheard, would slowly start to close. Because what the human soul craves most is not perfection, it is connection. So let us never walk so fast that we miss the outstretched hand. Let us never be so focused on our goals that we step over the people who need us. Let us remember that seeing the forgotten is not an act of charity, it is an act of justice, and it may just be the most important thing we ever do.